My name is Corey Bishop, and this is Bones to Life. Today I get to sit down with Ethan Mumma, someone who's not only a leader in our church, but a living example of how God patiently shapes us over time. Our next-gen pastor grew up in a Christian home, went to a Christian college, and even got saved at 5 years old. At least that's what he was told. But like many of us who grew up around faith, he eventually realized that knowing about God isn't the same as truly knowing Him. In his teenage years, everything shifted. God stirred something deeper, a calling towards youth ministry, a desire to be someone younger kids could look up to, and a conviction that started right at home. It was his relationship with his younger siblings that opened his eyes to what real discipleship looks like. Not performance, not pressure, but love, responsibility, and the kind of influence that reflects Christ. It reminds me of Paul's words in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12, where he says, "Set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." Sometimes God begins shaping that example long before we realize He's doing it. So today, we're diving into a story of early faith, rediscovery, calling, and the quiet ways God prepares us for the work He's already planned. I'm excited for you to hear this one. It's honest, it's encouraging, and it speaks to the God who meets us in every season. So open your minds and open your hearts as Ethan tells his story.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this space, and thank you for bringing Ethan to me. Thank you for putting it in his heart to tell his story so that we might reach another individual and draw them closer to God. Father, I pray that you can put the right words into Ethan's heart as he describes his stories and tells us about the path that led him to where he's at today. Lord, it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Ethan, why don't you start from the beginning for me? How did you start your path on this journey?
Okay. I was born, and then I was born at a very young age.
Very young.
Actually, what I'll do instead is I'm going to jump to, there was this class I took in college called, I think it was Spiritual Formation of Ministry Leaders or something like that.
Okay.
Anyways, the professor was like, all right, for this assignment, I'm going to give you this large piece of poster board and just a million sticky notes. And he goes, and what I want you to do is take those sticky notes and every single significant memory in your life, I want you to write it down on a sticky note and put it on the poster board. And gradually, you're just going to try to basically put all of your memories onto this thing.
That's
the idea.
Interesting.
And so it was a really cool assignment. And I remember as we're then comparing it between students, it was just cool seeing the kinds of things people thought were significant. And so some of these boards were so full of notes, people had to use both sides. One person in the class bought a second board because they were just getting so detailed with it.
Wow.
Anyways, the earliest sticky note that I could remember actually was from when I was 4 years old, because I remembered being in the hospital. I'd gotten a staph infection as a kid. And I remember, I don't remember all the details, but I remember sitting in that hospital bed and watching this movie called Dinosaur on the TV just over and over because I loved this movie. And I remember the day I was leaving the hospital, they showed me the waiting room where my older brothers had been. And I looked in this waiting room and saw a GameCube and went, what in the world? Why couldn't I hang out in this waiting room? So that was my earliest memory. That was when I was 4. When I was 5 is when I got saved, but I actually don't remember that. I only know that because I was told it. My parents told me at the age of 5, I accepted Jesus.
Wow.
So as I've got these first 2 sticky notes on the board, I'm thinking about that for a bit and just, pondering it. Filled out the rest of this thing, pulled together sort of a cohesive testimony that this is the version that I tell everyone over and over. And so I'm going to share that with you now,
Yes.
with all the threads tied together. So basically, I would say I was saved. I'm told I was saved at the age of 5. However, in my early teen years, I started to doubt it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, when you're saved at the age of 5, what kind of life change really happens? You don't there's the people who have the really cool testimonies where I used to steal cars and I murdered a guy, but then Jesus changed me. And I wasn't doing any of that before the age of 5. So the life change is a lot less dramatic.
Yeah.
And so I remember as an early teen, wondering whether I was really saved. And so I tried to ask Jesus into my heart, re-ask him to save me over and over and over. And every time I thought like, oh, maybe this time it'll work. Maybe this time I'll be able to feel that I'm saved. But nothing really changed. And I didn't know why.
So did you, when you were younger, before your teen years, you were told that you were saved, but did you understand what that meant at that point in time?
Yeah, it's interesting because I grew up in a Christian family. So I kind of always knew the basics. Like my family were Christian. They explained to me what it meant to be saved. I knew those details. And I was also in Awana clubs. Are you familiar with Awana clubs?
Yeah, I had gone to an Awana club once or twice with an old friend. When I was in my teenage years? I would kind of compare it to what our youth group kind of is,
Yes.
Kind of companionship.
Cool.
Yeah, companionship and building community within the youth and learning about God all at the same time.
Yeah, for those who don't know what Awanas is, it's if you think of like sort of a youth group sort of setting for younger kids, but kind of like Boy Scouts, there's like a whole bunch of rewards you get, like badges, you like fill in with gems and stuff. And it's all based around learning and memorizing Bible verses to get those rewards. So I was doing that since I forget when Cubby starts. I think it was before kindergarten, or maybe it's kindergarten. It's really young. And I did that like the whole way through middle school and high school. So even though I was still doubting like whether I was really a Christian, I had the theology pretty well down for that age. Like I understood probably a lot more than you might expect. But anyways, that didn't stop just from re-asking Jesus in my heart. Instead, my one cousin, Nate, love that guy. He invited me and my older brothers to his youth group. And I'd already been going to a youth group, but it was at a church that was like so small that the youth group was pretty much just me and my brothers, which is like not a bad thing per se, but it's not as helpful as having other people your age,
Yeah. And people from outside of your home to have a little bit of an influence on you.
And then add to that I was homeschooled. So it was like church was the only social setting. And as church got smaller and it was just us, it didn't really work that way. So anyways, I went along to his church, which was a much larger church, to attend their youth group. And truthfully, when I started going to the youth group, it really wasn't like to try to study the Bible any better. It was because I liked hanging out with my cousin Nate, and we played a whole bunch of dirty air hockey. Have you heard of dirty air hockey?
Dirty air hockey. No, I have never heard of dirty air hockey.
So if you picture air hockey, but barehanded, it hurts so much.
Yes.
So it ends up
imagine.
like... At first, like early in the game, it's a game of skill, but then it very quickly turns into a game of endurance because like I'm quick enough to catch that puck, but it's gonna hurt when I do. I broke a watch doing this because I tried to shield it with the watch instead.
Yeah, we would play Bloody Knuckles instead as a kid.
I've heard of that. One. I remember hearing of that and thinking, why would anyone do this?
Yes.
Although I did play dirty air hockey, so maybe
young boys, it happens, I guess.
Anyways, so I'm basically just going there to have fun. And then the one night they're like, all right, so we're going to do like an informational night for our mission trips coming up. So bring your parents in. We'll tell them all about it. So we bring mom in. She's listening to all this stuff. I'm listening to what they're describing about these mission trips and genuinely just thinking like, oh man, I don't like this. Like, I don't want to go talk to people. This sounds awful. And as we're driving home, I'm sitting in the back. Mom's, of course, driving. My oldest brother's in the front. And they're talking about it. And mom, I can hear it in her voice that she's hesitant, which, I mean, understandably, like we've been homeschooled our whole lives up to this point. She hasn't sent us that far away. Now all of a sudden, maybe she's going to send us to like Boston or Washington, D.C. or somewhere without her, So she's hesitant and I'm getting excited. Like, I'm going to get out of this. I can escape. And then I hear Darren, my oldest brother from the front seat go, but isn't this why we're here? And of course, I'm like, prick. So I did end up going on that mission trip. Really just because I didn't want to say no, because I knew I would look bad. So like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to go along with these guys. Whatever happens, happens. So we went to Boston. I had a lot of fun, but I managed to not talk to anyone except the people that I had went with. So all the people we were serving, I was always able to like fade into the background of the group. It was great.
It's like a superpower for introverts.
Yeah. You like talk just enough that people are like, oh yeah, he's around. And then other times you just sort of like slowly step backwards when a conversation's happening.
Yeah.
So anyways, I finished that trip and I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. I could do that again next year. That was a miscalculation The next year, they didn't set it up quite the same, because this time when we went to Washington, D.C., they put me on a team with my older brothers, and they wouldn't let me do that anymore. So I would try to fade into the background, and I'd get shoved into things. Are you familiar?
Good older brothers.
Yep. Are you familiar with like VBSs and stuff?
Yeah.
So we were in Washington, D.C., helping with a VBS at this at a school that was in a pretty poor area. And we're doing this skit for the story of David and Goliath, and we're doing some other Bible stories. And I sort of got voluntold to be the narrator, which is great. I love that. I was terrified.
Every introvert's dream, baby.
Yep. Well, a part of me was like rationalizing, like, at least I'm narrating instead of acting. Like, this is, I got out of it. This is the easy job. So I get up there, and the first day I'm just reading out of the Bible, and people are super bored. And so one of the other adults is like, hey, why don't you like summarize it and like narrate it that way? And so I did that the next time, which is way harder because now I'm actually looking at the audience. But what was really cool is now I saw these Bible stories that I knew really well because I'd grown up with them. I saw them having an impact on someone else. And so for me, they were very flat stories. Like, I know the story of David and Goliath, but it's kind of just like a list of facts. Like, I know them and they didn't have an impact on me.
Like repetition at that point for you.
Yeah. And then narrating this as we're acting it out and seeing the kids reacting to it, I'm like, okay, like this story actually has an impact. Like, this can do something. So that's kind of going through my head while I'm on this trip. But also in parallel, there's another thing I'm noticing, which is that right after that Bible story we narrate, we then split up based on groups. And so I'm hanging out with some kindergartners. Basically, just the idea was we're trying to get them to do a little bit of like schoolwork type stuff so that they stay like fresh over the summer instead of, losing it all.
Yeah.
And these kindergartners absolutely love me. Like, they are just, I'll like crouch down to help one with something, and the other ones will sort of just swarm me. Which was adorable. I loved it.
Yeah, it's got to be really cool.
It is. Yeah, it's always a good feeling. Like, side note, I still get that feeling today whenever the kids swarm me. Like, it reminds me of the Bible passage where they're little kids trying to get to Jesus.
Yeah.
And at first the disciples try to stop him because, of course, at the time they're thinking of kids as annoying and like, okay, he's trying to preach to these adults. Why are we going to waste time with these kids distracting? And Jesus says, no, let them come to me. And it uses them as an example for a story right after that. So it's always a cool feeling like, yes, no, I like that they like me. That's a good thing. Anyways, that evening, I'm sitting in a stairwell. We've like debriefed the day. I'm sitting in a stairwell and I'm just on my phone texting mom, like, we're alive, nothing to worry about. And as I'm doing that, this guy, Vinny DePaul, who I love dearly, I've basically had like 2 good conversations with him in my life. And this guy is one of the most impactful people. Like, he just doesn't realize. Actually, I should probably call him in hindsight. I should let him know. Anyways, he comes by, he sits down next to me and goes, hey, like, what are you processing? And I start talking to him about how these little kids absolutely love me. And it's weird to me because I've got 2 little brothers back home that I have a terrible relationship with. And as I'm just sitting in a stairwell talking to this guy about it, I start crying about something that I hadn't really thought about before. And I'm almost like wondering, like, what's going on here? And like, I realize as I'm having that conversation that the difference between those kids at the church and my little brothers back home, the difference is not that those kids are like great little angels and my little brothers are awful wretches. Like, that's just not true. In reality, I was a bad older brother. Like, I would get angry at things that didn't need to be getting angry about. And I would just explode at them for things that didn't make sense.
I think I don't know if I would call that a bad older brother, but I'm sure that's what went through your head. I think that's just a symptom of being in the same house with the same people day after day.
Maybe.
I think that's a part of it.
I think you're right in a sense that like that's what leads to the temptation. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what tempts you to then get angry and like explode about things. Yeah. But I think there's a step where like giving in to that was clearly my mistake.
Yeah.
In any case, I'm crying in the stairwell about it. And Vinny DePaul, he's like, I was just talking to my small group and we were talking about the difference between fear and regret. And he goes, and we kind of like likened it to like, how do you say it? A river versus a tsunami. Okay. And he says, regret is like a river. So what does a river do?
Keeps moving.
Well, yes, it keeps moving. Yeah. And as it flows, it gradually like erodes things.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you think of the Grand Canyon, That's what a river eventually forms, is a canyon like that. And that's regret. On the other hand, fear is about something that's coming towards you. So if you think of a tsunami coming towards you, that might destroy you, or you might be able to brace for it and prepare for it and get through it. And he said, like, don't let yourself just regret what you've already done, but instead let yourself fear what's ahead and then approach it. And so what was really cool about that is I was on this mission trip, but when I went back home was the first time that I'd actually lived my life on a mission. Like now I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a better older brother. And what's really cool about this is that like it was a dramatic, rapid shift. So much so that, you know, that class I was telling you about where we were making these testimonies, we're putting all the sticky notes on the things on the poster board. When I'm putting these sticky notes on the poster board, I'm like putting this stuff together and go, oh yeah, like this section of my life, I was really angry all the time. And then this section, I tried to be a better older brother. I was like, let me call my little brothers and see what they have to say about this. So I call Ryan, who is 7 years younger than me. And he's like, oh yeah, like I'd forgotten that there was ever this phase where we didn't get along well. But it sort of like came back to him as we were talking about it. Mm-hmm. And then Aiden, who's 11 years younger than me, when I was talking to him about it, he genuinely didn't remember it. As far as he knew, we had always been friends. Like he just didn't even remember that stage, which is a testament to just how rapidly God had changed my heart coming home for that mission trip. And what's really neat too is how God changed my heart there made it so I no longer doubted whether I was really a Christian. Like it wasn't even like I consciously thought about it and went, oh yeah, I'm a Christian now. Like I literally just didn't think about it for probably a couple of years because now it was obvious.
Yeah.
And so that like pulled a lot of those old threads together, which was really cool. My youth pastor, Travis Albanicius, love that guy. He, after we had been on that mission trip together to DC, he was like, hey, when you come back, you should come and serve in the middle school ministry at church. So I started volunteering with fifth graders. I stayed in that middle school ministry and then moved up with the kids as they went for, I'm trying to think, was it 9.5 years, I think? And only stopped then because I then got this job at Wallen Paulback Church. So over the course of that time, like not only did I dramatically change my relationship with my younger brothers, but I was also regularly pouring into these other middle schoolers and then high schoolers. And Ryan, my one brother, was actually in my small group for most of middle school and a chunk of high school. And I remember like, it was this cool feeling for me because I don't know. I mean, I guess you've got kids in the youth group and you're volunteering. Yeah. Like, what do you notice when you're like volunteering in the same setting that you've got a family member?
Well, for me, I know that both of my kids struggled with anxiety. So just getting them there in the first place was a little bit of a struggle. My son, he blossomed. He found friends.
He's doing great. I can confirm.
Yes, he went out on his own, and it's really cool to see. My daughter still struggles with a bit of anxiety, and I'm a little bit of her security blanket, so she kind of tends to cling to me when I'm there. But it's really cool to see the growth. So while she still has some of these anxieties, I see her branching out. I see her going and talking to new people. I can see her getting excited. Yeah, she still has her moments, but it's cool to see her grow in that environment with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. So what I noticed, well, at one point I'm talking to someone about it, and they're like, isn't that weird to like have your brother in a small group? But what I realized when I was talking about it was that it didn't feel like my brother followed me from my house to the small group. What it actually felt like was one of the kids from the small group I was leading follows me home.
Well, that's a neat way to look at it.
And that like it's tough to describe the significance of that, where like it matters that I live consistently now because one of the kids from church lives in my house. So if I like talk about honoring your parents and then don't honor my parents at home, one of the kids from my church is watching me do that.
Yeah.
And so that was just so cool. Like, it was a huge part of shaping the kind of leader that I am because of just like constantly having that pressure.
Yeah.
Pressure isn't even the right word. It was like there was an extra significance to things that would have otherwise been hidden. And then Ryan, my younger brother, like also talks about like just he he credits me for more than I really think he should sometimes in terms of his formation. And it's just really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Anyways, going back to that class with the poster board and the sticky notes, the reason I mentioned that class in particular is that everything I just told you sounds like this nice, tidy story. There's actually a couple more details I should mention, which is that, so that was just really my journey to like understanding that I'm a Christian, but I still had to decide from there where I was going to go for a career. And so I wrestled for a while on whether I wanted to keep volunteering in ministry and work somewhere else, or whether I wanted to work in ministry. And a big part of how I decided that was actually, I stopped and was reading the verse James chapter 3, verse 1, which is, brethren, not many of you should become teachers, for those of us who teach will be judged more strictly.
Yeah.
So I looked at that and I was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not doing this halfway. I want to like fully focus on what I'm doing here. So there's other details like that. But before we try to like grab everything, the point I want to make here is when I took all those sticky notes and connected threads, now I've got this concise story that you're like, wow, this thing wraps around to that thing. That's so cool. But there are also a whole bunch of sticky notes that didn't connect to anything else. And you're like, okay, what do I do with these sticky notes now? One of those was that first memory of like being in the hospital when I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, it's just a random memory. Like, what do I do with this? It doesn't connect to the story, you know? So I just don't mention it sometimes when I tell my testimony. A year or two after I took this class, there'd been like some argument going on and I stayed cool, and it was like surprising. Like I was talking to my dad afterwards and he like genuinely was shocked by like how I was able to stay cool. And then he just randomly drops this info, which is that he goes like, you know, back when you were 4 and in the hospital and you had that staph infection, it's like there was a little chunk of time where we thought we might actually lose you. And so I prayed to God that if he would save you, he could have you. He's like, and what I had in mind was something like ministry related. So by this point, I'm already like almost done with my degree in college, getting a youth ministry degree. And I'm like, Dad, why the flip? Didn't you tell me this earlier when I was trying to pick a career? But anyways, I mentioned that to say like, this was a cool full circle moment where now I was like, oh, like that moment that was a random memory for me. I don't remember being saved. I do remember this random moment that just so happens to be the moment when God dedicated me to serving Jesus. That is my actual earliest memory, which is so cool to think about.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then it just took a long time before God could convince me of what him and Dad already knew. So the point I want to make there is when we make those like poster boards with all the sticky notes of our life, we can tie together some threads now, but there are plenty of threads that you simply can't tie together yet because you haven't seen the whole story yet.
Yeah. And from what it sounds like is it sometimes takes an outside perspective to help pull those together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you need, who is it? It's I can't remember. The guy who wrote The Practice of the Presence of God. What is that guy's name? Can you Google that real quick? I feel dumb for forgetting. Is it Brother Lawrence? No. Is it Brother Lawrence? I don't know why I'm Googling. I don't have an internet connection.
You're right, Brother Lawrence.
Brother Lawrence. So he wrote a book called Practice of the Presence of God. Great book. Very old. So you have to be a little patient when you're reading it, but it's actually pretty concise. Anyways, the reason I mention it is he talks about this idea of like anyone who wants to be with others and fears being alone should probably be spending more time alone. And anyone who wants to be alone and fears being with others should probably be spending more time with others. And the reason he says that is that like both of those forces kind of like balance each other. So if you spend too much time alone, you're likely to sort of overanalyze things and go off in the wrong direction. And you need other people to bounce ideas off of to steer you back. And if you're spending too much time with other people, then you simply don't have the time to think, to come up with something new to give them. So you sort of just talk about nothing and learn only their opinions. I mentioned that because you were just making the point that like sometimes you need other people to draw those threads together. Yeah, like that's very important. You need some time alone to process it, but you also need time with others or else you go off the deep end sometimes. Like that's what we tend towards alone. So
was there ever a time where you tried to remember that being saved at 5 years old? You ever sat down and tried your hardest to remember it?
I mean, yeah, I can't.
Yeah, you get no points, no
like I've
little
had it
pieces?
described to me, and so like I almost feel like I've built this like false memory from the descriptions. Like it's not actually a memory,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But like I know where I was in the house. I know like some of the other details around it. So I like almost have a memory. I can almost picture it, but it's not actually what I remember.
Yeah, and it's tough because our minds can play tricks on us, especially when it comes to
Yeah.
memories. And I don't really blame you. There's not really, like, I was thinking about the whole poster board thing while you were talking about it, and I just think, wow, how many sticky notes would I have on that board? It would probably look pretty barren because there's not much I can really remember from my younger years. I think that's a very difficult thing to do for me. So to hear you say that there are people who had to go out and buy an extra board along with
To be
using
fair,
the
that was
flip
not
side.
me. I did think that guy was a little crazy. I was like,
Did you really?
I was
Okay.
like, okay, that's too many notes.
That's a lot. That's a lot of notes.
Mhm.
So the other thing I wanted to mention too was I think it's really cool. I think it's really beautiful how God puts you in a position to get that feeling and to teach you exactly what you needed to learn by sending you to that camp and having that experience with those kids and feeling what you felt in that moment to bring you to that aha moment where you're like, I can't believe this. I think it's just beautiful how God works in that way. He gives you exactly what you need and exactly when you need it.
Yeah, and there's a million other little stories I could give that are like that. Like God does exactly what you need. So there's been times where like I've been wondering about something and he'll like have 3 different people say the exactly identical thing, and it's just like not what I want to hear. But I'm like, okay, like this guy definitely did not talk to that guy. Like there was actually here I should give the story. So there was one time during like this major family like extended family conflict, I was sort of the mediator of it, which first of all was just really cool because this thing like had sort of been simmering for most of my life. And yet now I was in a counseling class for the first time as they're also trying to resolve it for the first time. So God perfectly prepared me to be able to be the mediator for this. And indeed I did mediate it well. Eventually we got through it. It was a big part of like my dad, like not knowing how to communicate without getting angry, and my grandma not wanting to communicate because she was afraid she was going to make him angry. And so it was really just about getting them to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And I remember like there was like one day where my dad comes back after one of those conversations and he goes, Ethan, I tried the thing you said and it worked. I was like, what, the thing I said? He's like, yeah, where instead of responding right away, I let her keep explaining and she talks herself out of it. I was like, oh, so the thing you're saying is the be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to get angry. That's definitely my thing and not,
Yes.
and not the thing from the Bible.
Not at all.
So I basically poured tons of time into this though. And so like a year later, after it's all resolved, looking back, I can see the other sacrifices I had made in my life. For a chunk of time, I had just basically neglected a whole bunch of other things.
Okay.
And so I know that I need to not do that again. Like this thing is resolved. It's in the past. I need to now be distant from that specific scenario. And there's this family get together I'm going to be going to, and I'm worried about it because I know like the things I'm hearing ahead of time make me afraid that I'm going to get stuck mediating again. But I know it's not appropriate now. It was appropriate then, but not now. And so I go and I talk to a friend and I'm explaining this whole situation to him. And I'm like, okay, so like, what should I do? And he goes, Ethan, you have a good heart. I'm like, that is the most useless advice. What do I do with that?
Yes. That's a compliment. That's not advice.
So I go to another good friend and talk about this. And they go, you have a good heart, Ethan. I'm like, what in the world? And then I talk to a mentor of mine who, get this, also says the same thing with no advice. And I'm like, what in, like, I don't know what to do about this.
What do I do?
So I show up to this, a part of me was contemplating not even going to the get together to just avoid it. But I showed up to the get together because I have a good heart, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's like non-advice. But I show up and my one aunt, her husband has this like degenerative brain condition and it's just really ugly. Like he has started sort of turning on his family and getting angry at people for things that like he never would have and never should have gotten angry about just because of the brain condition. And so to my aunt's credit, she's an incredibly loving person and was still loving him despite that, even as he's like moving out because of this. Like he went and got another place. And so I'm sitting at this table where I've got this crazy uncle who's trying to start a discussion, like trying to start an argument, where he'll just say this politically divisive thing and then wait to try to see if someone will argue with him, which didn't even work because everyone at the table had the same political views as him.
Yeah.
So I truly couldn't fathom what was going on. And then also another family member is like starting to talk to someone else like loudly and at length. And I'm like, okay, I turn to my dad and I go, Dad, you're going to go hug Aunt such and such. And he goes, do I have to? And I'm like, yes, go do it. And as he does that, I talk to the other family members to distract them, to buy him time. And so I go home from that get together going, okay, like I actually saw the specific job I had there. Like I recognized what Dad probably also recognized and just had to give him the push to go do it and go hug that aunt, who was his sister. And then I was also able, because of that awareness, to just be like, okay, this person needs a distraction. I need to just essentially hold them off.
Yeah.
And do it in a loving way. And so it's just really cool when those things happen where like, I prayed going in, God, show me exactly what you need me to do. And then there was an actual very specific task to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really neat. A lot of us, and I said this in another episode too, is we always ask God for signs, but we never open our eyes or hearts to see those signs. Like we'll make excuses for what it could be. It's everything but God. So I think it's really neat. You know, he does give us signs. He does show us what to do in what situations. And, you know, we just have to pay attention to it.
Yeah. And then there was also another story, which was really cool, which was money. I almost feel hesitant to talk about money sometimes because I've never actually been in want. Like I've always had enough. I've at no point been in danger of being on the street or anything like that. My family is fairly well off. But there was this one point in college where, partially because of some of that like mediating I had done, I had failed college classes, and I'm at the point now where my parents are starting to doubt like whether I'm going to actually complete all these classes because they've seen me fail some of them. But I'm convinced at this point, like I've wanted to drop out multiple times over the years, and every time God has like shown me he doesn't want me to do that. The first time I wanted to drop out, I'm on the phone with my mom freshman year, telling her I want to drop out. I can't do this anymore. And while I'm on the phone, I hear my laptop go ding, and I open it up, and there's an email saying, hey, by the way, someone donated this amount of money to your student account. I'm like, looking at it like, oh, that was weird timing. And stuff like that kept happening. Like, I'm like, oh, I need to drop out. I can't do this anymore. And then this professor's like, hey, I'm going to give you an extension on this thing. I know you can do it well. Just completely out of the blue, right at the moment when I'm talking about dropping out.
Yep, absolutely.
So by this point, I'm convinced God wants me in college. He wants me to finish this degree. But now my parents are no longer convinced. And so I don't know how I'm going to make it work financially. Like, I truly just don't understand. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm praying to God. God, I'm pretty sure that you want me here. Like, it seems like that's clearly what you're saying. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to try to do the first step, and I trust you to take care of the rest. So I look at my bank account, I start doing the math, and it turns out that it's not just that I have enough money, it's that for the first month of that semester, I have $10 more than I need. Like, my bank account dipped to $10. And that was just to get me through 1 month of college. And I was like, you know what? This is a really specific amount of money that God has provided me with. So I did it. Normally that would be a bad decision, to be clear. Normally that kind of thing is like reckless.
Yes.
But I was very confident that God had already shown me what he wanted me to do. So I went for it. By the end of that month, I was doing well enough that my parents were convinced and were willing to help me pay for college, but with extra conditions of like, okay, you've got to do this and this. But it was reasonable stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, when I think about finances or I think about tithing, like sometimes people tell me, I don't know how I can tithe. Truly, I don't know like why I would doubt it. I've always tithed because I've seen times like that in my own life where the money just shows up. God will take care of me. And if the money doesn't show up, that's because he doesn't actually want me to do the thing that costs that money. Now again, I feel like I should be a little careful about this because I know there's people who are like, they're short on money and have a hard time getting food or rent, which is totally different than what I've experienced. But what I have experienced is God's faithfulness. Like God has always provided. So,
yeah. So it seems like you have your career path pretty much set out for you. Would I be correct in assuming that you?
I sure hope so.
You kind of have it together. You know what you want to do.
I think so.
So
It's the stage I'm at right now.
The stage you're at right now. So you want to continue on the path of being a youth pastor and, and leading the youth into the future.
Yeah, like occasionally someone will ask you like, "Oh, do you ever want to be like a head pastor?" Truthfully, not really. Like, I don't view that as an upgrade. It's important.
Yes.
But it's just a different work. Like, there's a different kind of thing you do as a head pastor. So, yeah, this is where I wanted to be, and I'm there now. It's pretty sweet. So
yeah, man, you're definitely one of the lucky ones to be able to do what you want to do at such a young age.
Definitely,
and to do it well. So that's a beautiful thing. I love it for you. With us closing out this episode, is there one piece of advice for the people listening that you would want to give them? One takeaway from this, if anything else, the one piece of advice you could take away from it.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would want people to keep in mind is that, like, that discussion of those plot threads. Like, when you think about your life, there are the plot threads you can tie together right now, but there's plenty you can't. And that's not because God isn't good. Like, it's not like this thing has no purpose right now. It's because God's still tying that plot thread together into something, and you just can't see it yet. God is going to use, like, some of the worst things in your life that you're like, why would God let this happen? Often God doesn't, I wouldn't say God causes those. Like, God doesn't cause evil in our life to do good later. But God does use those things. He doesn't let them go to waste. So, like, if you take a moment, actually, here's my one piece of advice. Get a poster board, get a bunch of sticky notes, and do the activity where you try to write down, like, all or most of the memories you can think of, and then try to connect them into a story. Like, what's the common thread you can pull together if you were trying to make a movie about your life? It's a cool practice because when you notice the things that haven't been paid off yet, like, just take a moment to note them and see, like, a year from now if any of them are explained. Sometimes they are, and it's really cool when it happens.
Yeah, that's cool. That's going to be a fun project. It's going to take me forever to complete, but maybe I'll try it out.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, so just start.
Yeah.
What a gift to hear how God has been shaping our next gen pastor's story. Not just through big moments, but through the quiet, everyday relationships that formed his heart. His journey reminds us that faith isn't a single memory or a childhood milestone. It's a lifelong invitation to grow, to surrender, and to step into the calling God places on us. I'm kind of struck by the way God used his younger siblings to reveal what real leadership looks like. It echoes Proverbs 22 verse 6, which says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." Sometimes God trains us as we're training others. And sometimes he shapes us while we're trying to be an example. And yet other times he uses the people closest to us to call us deeper into who he made us to be. If this story has encouraged you today, let it be a reminder that God is always at work, even in the seasons that feel ordinary or in the roles we didn't expect, and even in the relationships we might take for granted. He's forming something in you too. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Bones to Life. Until next time, keep leaning into the places where God is breathing life, calling you forward, and writing your story with purpose. Don't forget to follow the show on Spotify and leave a rating. Let's keep these dry bones rattling.